In a previous video, we created our local agent loop using Olama as our Open API-like API. We've only got one tool in here called Run Bash, and everything here works great. Now, what we're going to do is create some more specific tools. Run Bash is awesome, but we may run into limitations, so we want to create a way to specifically read, edit, and write a file. And the first thing I'm going to do is create a new file called tools.ts. And I'm going to bring in all of our tool stuff. I'll bring in some extra things, and then we'll clean that up. Don't need this. We're going to need our working directory and our block commands. Don't need the API. There is our tools, which we're going to export. And then, let's see, we need this. Don't need that. We don't need that right now. And we don't need this yet. We might need it though. Okay, so that is our bash tool kind of recreated in an external file. So we'll say import tools from that file, and then we can get rid of all of this for the time being. And we don't need that. And at the moment, we don't need either of these. We don't need that guy. Okay, so all that's cleaned up. I'm just going to double check that it works. All right, so we got 4. Our agent still works. I'm going to jump over to tools. And like I said, what we want to create is a specific tool for reading, writing, and editing files. So we're going to start with our, we'll call it run read. It's going to take a file path, which is a string, and then an optional limit, which is a number. So limiting the number of lines that the agent wants to read. All of these are going to be wrapped in a try catch. And the error will just return there. So now in the try, we're going to say, we're going to have this FP because we're going to write another function that makes sure we're inside of our working directory. But for right now, I'm just going to say that's equal to file path. And then we'll get our lines. That's going to be, we're going to need to bring in node file system and node path. So here, this will be fs, our file system, dot read file sync, and that'll just be our file path, basic encoding. And then we're going to split that guy on the line breaks. And then we'll just return depending on whether or not we have a limit. So if we have a limit, say lines.slice 0 up to the limit. Otherwise, it'll just be the lines. And then we're going to join that back together on the line break. And then we're going to internally just say that we're not going to go over 50,000 lines. Okay, so there's our run read. Now we're going to come down here to our tools. And I think for the most part, this is going to be very similar. We can use that as a template. So this would be read file. Our description will be read a file. Our schema is obviously going to be a little bit different. So we're going to have our file path, and then we're going to have optional limit. Then our execute, just going to rewrite that guy. So execute, take in our file path and our limit, and then just call run read with the file path and the limit. Okay, so there's our read file tool. Now we're going to follow suit with our run write and run edit. So let's do our run write. It'll be very similar, except we'll have a file path and content. So that's what the content that we want to write to the new file. First, we're going to make sure we have a directory to write to based on the file path. We'll say path.dirname of file path. We'll just say recursive true to make sure that we get down to any nested directories. And then we'll write our file. So write file sync. And that's going to be our file path and then our content. And then we'll just return that we wrote the file. We'll add the file path in there. And while we're here, we'll go ahead and do our edit. So run edit. This will be a little bit different. So we're going to have old text and new text. So we've got a file path. We know what the old text we're looking for, and we're going to replace it with the new text. And say our content is going to be read the file. And we're going to say if the content doesn't include the old text, and we'll just agree with the AI here. We're just going to say that we didn't find it. And then we're just going to say, let's write the file. So we've got fs write file sync. We've got our file path. And then we're going to say content.replace old text with the new text. And we'll say we edited the file. Okay, I think this is looking pretty good. Now we're going to add these to our tools. So we'll just copy this read file. And we'll make write file. Say write a file. Got our file path. Got our old text and our new text. So this will be file path, old text, and new text. And then we'll just pass those into run write. You know what? I was actually doing our edit tool, so I'm just going to switch over to that. So this is our edit file, edit a file, and run edit, which is going to make it really easy to do what I meant to do, which is write file. So write file is going to be there. Say write a file, and then this will just be content, and we don't need this guy. This will just be content, file path, and content, and run write. Okay, so we got to read, edit, and write. We've still got our bash. It's a perfect fallback, and all of this is looking pretty good. I'm going to jump over here, and we're going to say, instead of use bash, we're going to say use tools to solve tasks. And that's it. That just says go in, look at your tools. Now, there is one other thing I was going to do here, which is I mentioned it on these fp equals file path. We want to make sure that we're in the working directory. So we're going to create a quick function here called safe path. And it's just going to take in the path, which is a string. And we're just trying to make sure that we're in our working directory. So we'll say const resolved. We'll use resolve to make sure that it actually exists. So we'll say workdir and the path that it's looking for. So that should be path.resolve. And then we'll say if the resolved path doesn't include the work directory or it doesn't start with it, then we know we have a problem. So we'll say resolved dot starts with, and here we'll just return you know what we'll do, actually throw there. So we'll say throw new error, path is not in. And if we're all good and that hasn't happened, all we got to do is return resolved. And then on each of these guys, we're going to say the file path is safe path around that guy. So I'll just copy that into each one of these. Okay, so now our guy is going to use any of the available tools. We've got read a file, edit a file, write a file, and then we've got run a shell command. So if we come back in, got a issue on that safe path one. There we go. Try that one more time. There's our input. And we're going to try our create. So this is going to be our write a file. So create a file called greet.ts with greet name and string function. Cool. It says it created it. We'll look at greet, and sure enough, there it is. And then we'll try our edit. So I'm going to say edit it and add some comments at the top of the function. And we can see it did in fact add those. And now we're just going to do a read. So I'm saying read it and verify the edit worked, which means it's going to have to use our history to keep the context of the conversation. And that's something that we built into this last time. Awesome. So there you go. We have isolated our tools away from our primary agent loop, and now we just import those. Clean this up really quick. We've added 3 new tools. On top of the existing bash tool, we've got a read, write, and edit tool available to our agent loop.